You know, when you hear about type 1 diabetes and it's always like, your body stops making insulin, end of story. Like, it's this lifelong thing you just gotta manage.
Right.
Well, what if, and just hear me out here, what if we could somehow tell the pancreas, hey, remember how to make insulin? Yeah, you need to start doing that again.
Now you're talking. That's the holy grail right there.
And that's exactly why I am so hyped about the research we're going deep on today. We're talking about a paper, get ready for it. It's called EZH2 inhibitors promote beta-like cell regeneration in young and adult type 1 diabetes donors.
Catchy, right?
Super catchy, but we'll unpack it all. Don't worry about all the technical terms. The big picture is this. Scientists might have cracked the code on getting the pancreas to regrow those insulin-making rock stars, the beta cells.
And not just growing them in some petri dish. We're talking about testing this on cells from actual donors with type 1 diabetes. It's a big, big deal.
Huge. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's back up for a sec. Just a quick refresher. Type 1 diabetes. Immune system goes haywire, attacks the beta cells, wipes them out.
No beta cells, no insulin.
Exactly. And no insulin means.
Your blood sugar's all over the place. You're basically stuck relying on external insulin forever.
Okay, so that's the bummer part. But now, here's where things get really interesting. For years, scientists have been looking at these other cells in the pancreas. They're called ductal progenitor cells. They're kind of like stem cell-ish, with the potential to transform into other cell types.
Including potentially those precious beta cells.
Bingo! Now, there was this initial hope, like maybe these ductal cells were the answer. Then some research came out, and it kind of threw cold water on the whole thing.
Yeah, science can be a real roller coaster sometimes.
But now, it seems like ductal cells are making a comeback. So what changed? What's got everyone so hopeful again?
Two things, really. One, newer studies are suggesting these ductal cells are way more adaptable than we thought, like they've got hidden talents or something. But honestly, the real game changer is the tech.
Oh yeah, the technology has come a long way.
Light years, with things like single-cell RNA sequencing. Man, we can zoom in on a single cell now and see exactly what's happening with its genes, its RNA, the whole 9 yards. It's like going from a clunky old flip phone to the latest smartphone.
Okay, so we've got the tools, we've got these promising cells, but here's the million-dollar question. If these ductal cells can become beta cells, why aren't they doing it already, especially in people with type 1 diabetes? What's the holdup?
Well, it's like our bodies have this built-in mechanism, a kind of default suppression.
Right.
Basically, it limits certain types of cell regeneration once we're done developing.
So, like, we hit a growth spurt, decide we've got enough beta cells, and then bam, flip the switch to off.
Pretty much.
Seems kind of short-sighted if you ask me.
You and me both. But look, in the grand scheme of evolution, it probably made sense at some point. Now, not so much.
Yeah.
But that's where this research comes in. They might have actually found that off switch, and it's an enzyme called, you ready for this?
Yeah.
EZH2. It's not exactly like a light switch, though. It's more complicated than that.
Right, of course.
EZH2 is like this, I guess you could say it's like a big control panel, right? And it's got all these dials and knobs for different cell functions.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got to figure out which knob to turn or maybe which wire to, I don't know, to get those ductal cells to morph into beta cells.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
That's where these drugs come in. The researchers, they were looking at two specific drugs, GSK126 and this other one. It's called tazemetostat, but everyone just calls it Taz.
Taz, got it.
So get this, these drugs are already FDA approved.
Wait, seriously?
Yep.
So they're out there being used right now, but for something else?
Exactly.
And someone was just like, hey, what if we tried this on? I mean, that's incredible.
It's kind of a happy accident, right?
Yes.
Like finding a $20 bill in your pocket. But yeah, these drugs, they basically inhibit, meaning they block EZH2.
And that's good. Blocking this EZH2 thing.
Potentially, yeah. Because the thinking is if you block it, it releases the brakes on this whole ductal cell transformation thing.
Okay, so what happened? Spill the tea. They tested it out on real human cells, right?
Oh, yeah, they did.
God.
And they got even more, strategic with it. They used cells from 3 different groups of donors.
Yeah.
One group, young child, recently diagnosed with type 1.
Okay.
Then an adult who'd been living with it for over 30 years.
Wow, okay. So completely different stages.
Totally. And then the third group was a control, donors without diabetes.
Smart.
Right. Covers all the bases.
So what happened? Did it actually regrow beta cells?
Okay, so listen to this. Both of the drugs, GSK126 and Taz, they increase the expression of these genes, these key genes that are essential for beta cells to function.
Okay, so they're seeing activity. That's good.
But it gets better. They saw this increase in all 3 donor groups.
No way! Even in the cells from someone who'd had type 1 for decades. That's amazing. But did they actually make insulin? That's the real question.
Drum roll, please. They did. They observed actual insulin production in those treated cells.
Get out! Even the diabetic cell.
Even the diabetic cells. This wasn't just like some faint signal, some little blip on the radar. These cells were actually making insulin.
So is this it? Are we talking about a cure? Because this is huge.
Okay, pump the brakes just a little. We have to remember this is still early days,
Right.
research-wise.
Right.
It's crazy promising, don't get me wrong, but it's not a cure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Got a little ahead of myself there. Easy to get swept up in the moment when you're talking about something this big.
Oh, for sure. This is major league stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
But, okay, even if it's not, a cure right this second, it feels like a massive step in the right direction.
It really is. We're talking about potentially rewriting everything we thought we knew about treating type 1.
Right. It's not just managing symptoms anymore. It's like maybe we can actually fix the root problem.
Exactly.
So what's next? What are the big hurdles, you think, to actually turn this into a real treatment?
Well, one of the biggies is figuring out how to make this last. The study, it was only for a short period of time.
Right.
So can we make those beta cells keep regenerating long term?
Yeah, we don't want them to just give up after a while. Exactly. And then there's the delivery system.
Yeah.
How do we get those drugs to the pancreas safely? Can we target them precisely? Lots to figure out.
So we can flip the switch, but keeping it flipped is a whole other ballgame.
Nailed it.
But still, it's like we're on the verge of something huge. A
Yeah.
totally new chapter for type 1, maybe even reversing it someday.
Wouldn't that be something? And the best part is these drugs, they're already FDA approved. That's huge.
Right, like a fast track.
Exactly. Way fewer hurdles, potentially.
Music to my ears. Okay, before we wrap up, what's the one big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I'd say this. This research shows us, it really shows us, that regrowing those lost beta cells in people with type 1, it might actually be possible. And that changes everything.
Huge news. Definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on. As always, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. The quest for knowledge never ends, so we'll be back with more breakthroughs soon. Until then, stay curious.